Hello, welcome to the Myth-Busting Neurodiverse Relationships podcast. I'm Natalie Roberts and I'm here with my co-host Heather Parks. We've both been in our neurodiverse relationships and families for more than 25 years. We met 10 years ago when we were feeling really desperate and trying to solve a lot of issues in our relationship and our families. We've been journeying since then. We've found many more positive and hopeful ways to solve, resolve, repair, reconnect in those relationships and in our families, in our lives. And we now co-host also Loving Difference online, giving hope and a way forward for neurodiverse relationships. In this podcast, though, we're busting the myths about neurodiverse relationships, which we had when we started this journey, that we've realised aren't true, and that actually were preventing us from recovering and having the relationships with our partners and children that we wanted. So we want to dispel these myths and bring you hope that absolutely things can change. So whether you're out and about or comfy with a cuppa, let's dive into our next conversation. See you there.
Welcome to the Myth-Busting Neurodiverse Relationships podcast. I'm Heather Parks. I've been navigating differences in my relationship and family for 25 years, along with my husband Phil and our 4 children. For much of this time, neurodiversity was unknown and there were challenges and struggles for us all. I discovered new ways of navigating difference so that I can be true to myself and thrive in my neurodiverse family. I'm now an accredited somatic coach and nervous system educator, helping others to heal so that they can be the best versions of themselves and thrive too.
Hello, I'm Natalie Roberts. I've been in a neurodiverse relationship and family with my husband Pete for 25 years. We discovered neurodiversity was a part of our story in 2014 when we were really struggling as a couple and a family. Now we're thriving and enjoying life in ways I couldn't have imagined back then. I'm also an accredited relationship coach supporting individuals and couples in neurodiverse relationships to reverse the impact of unknown neurodiversity and thrive in a relationship and a life that they dream of.
9 years ago, when Natalie and I were struggling most, we found much needed validation and understanding in the support groups and professional support that we accessed. Sadly, though, we also experienced blaming and stuckness in many groups that we joined, and some professional support that either made things worse or lacked insight into our lived experience or the much needed healing and solutions that could create sustainable change.
We were both working on reversing the impact of unknown neurodiversity and finding new ways to resolve complex everyday relationship and family challenges without our partners involved. We want you to know that you can change your whole experience by focusing on you and without needing to change anybody else. We also realised that this journey is about so much more than new or more knowledge.
Fast forwarding to 2018, we became the professionals we'd needed as accredited coaches so that we could support others with our own journey into this unknown territory. And in 2020, we created the community we needed in Loving Difference. Together, we now host Revival Retreat, the all-online journey for a flourishing life in your neurodiverse relationship, with a map, empowering resources, tools, and all the support you need to recover, create sustainable change, and be you in your relationship and your life. Loving Difference and Revival Retreat are for anyone, on your own or together, whatever your neurotype. What we all have in common is wanting new ways to thrive in our neurodiverse relationships. Find out more at lovingdifference.net.
And in this podcast, we're busting the myths about neurodiverse relationships, which we had when we started this journey, that we've realised aren't true and that were preventing us from recovering and having the relationships with our partners and our children that we wanted. We want to dispel these myths and bring you hope that absolutely things can change. So in today's episode, we're busting the myth that misunderstandings are all because of neurodiversity. So whether you're out and about or comfy with a cuppa even, let's dive into our next conversation.
Cuppa, wherever, grab a drink. Let's get going. So yeah, we're on a Monday morning here, sort of where we're recording, and we felt the need to go easy, didn't we? So
yeah,
we just happened to
changed.
Yeah, I know. And we just had a kind of
today.
a bit of a post in the network this morning, didn't we, in Loving Difference, and we thought, do you know what, it's so typical, isn't it? Let's just talk about that for a little bit. And I think it's been, you know, funny watching the comments already on it, hasn't it, how much it resonated. And I think that was one of the things that we were talking about, isn't it, that you can go and get professional support, or you can sit down and maybe like thrash out some of the really heavy stuff, or you can read the books, or you can go and watch the films or whatever. None of them actually teach you how to deal with the in the moment, little mundane, nitty gritty, everyday stuff, you know, where you just like thrown. And that's what we've been trying to really create, the resources and the tools to empower people to change, isn't it? To have so let's say something about this kind of this little bit that we call like, what's the story you're telling yourself? You can tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, well, should I just tell you my little story from last week that I shared in Loving Difference over the weekend around, so this was like one of these situations that I think were happening all the time before we knew neurodiversity was involved, and difference, the extent that difference was involved, and all these little situations where stuff happens. And one happened last week where, because I'm a bit just more aware of what my thinking is these days, there was one of these little situations which could have become a really big escalated thing, and in the past I could see exactly where that could have gone, and I noticed what I was thinking and doing, and it didn't happen, and it was all good. But it really just brought home to me how still, like, it's not that these things have all necessarily all gone away, but we've got different tools, different thinking, different ways to handle it. And it was just all over a fish pie. So it was the thing you're saying, which is you can read all the books, you can watch all the stuff, but what do you actually need to do on this was a Tuesday at 5 o'clock when something gets said, what do you do different? And to me, none of the books really helped me with any of that. So what happened was I was making a fish pie. It was my job to do that day. That's what I said I'd do. Pete gets home and he came in and asked a question. 5 words. Have you made the fish pie? And I noticed what my brain did with those words and with that information, and realized that my thinking heard 2 different questions. And it heard, why haven't you made the fish pie? And you should have made the fish pie.
Yeah.
So that's what I was thinking that those words from that person in that moment might have meant. And I could feel the whole thing going on. And obviously a lot of judgments, and I'd planned to make the fish pie earlier in the day, so I think there was an element of a bit of that swimming around in me already, that I hadn't quite got to where I thought I would be in the day, and it wasn't quite ready when I'd thought.
So you're judging yourself as well.
I was already in it. In it, and so then I was hearing what he was saying, but it was the fact that it was interrupted very quickly as well, because his next words were, and I said, no, I haven't finished it. And he just said, oh, that's good, because I was hoping that, because then I could have a pork pie from the fridge. He was hoping for a little snack before dinner, and it just wasn't anything about what I'd made up in my brain. So it was just a really good example to me of how misunderstandings can happen very easily, and we can get into my reaction to that would have been something quite different years ago, and then Pete's reaction to my reaction would have been a thing, and then my reaction to his reaction to my reaction would have been a thing, which I started calling Meaning Ping Pong. It
just balloons outwards, doesn't it, from one bit of something that we've received incorrectly that had no intention around that at all, and also it's that story we start telling ourselves, and also along with it, it's a whole defensive reaction that's going on in our body. It's like all of that growing as well, isn't it? And you kind of and then there's the whole history of all the past stuff that you've been stuffing in and trapping down. So then you suddenly all in resentment, aren't you, as well?
And I think maybe that I have very little of that now. No. I think that those kinds of literally that time of the day always would have been a bit of a tricky one, and those kinds of questions about those kinds of things used to be very, very challenging, and my reactions to them myself were very challenging for lots of reasons that we might go into today. but I think there was a sense of that time traveling thing we talk about the past being present, and my own judgments being present, and in something that wasn't any of that. And it's the lesson and the learning that inside of the time between me doing all of that in my head and Pete telling me that actually he wanted a snack was seconds, only a few. And the amount of meaning that happened inside of that moment was really big. And I think that's what I think it's really important that when we're thinking about misunderstandings, that there's lots and lots of different channels or ways and places that meaning is coming from inside of those little moments. And when we discover neurodiversity, I think we often think and we assume, and the myths would say that all of that meaning is because of neurodiversity. And so I think for today, I just want us to shed some light on some of the other places that meaning comes from, and what else is showing up.
And it's so perfect, isn't it? Those really little stories. And one of the things we teach is trying to create a little bit of space, isn't it, between what has been said and us accepting the first meaning that comes to mind and the whole reaction that goes with it. Because often, like you say, you just needed to be able to pause long enough for the next for that next sentence to come out, and you knew that it wasn't that, and everyone could go, okay, stand down. But if we don't have any ability to create that space or to pause, or to if we're so reactive, that would have happened instantly, wouldn't it? And before he got his next word in, you'd have already reacted. And like you said, then you'd have got into this ping-ponging, like table tennis or whatever everyone calls it. But, that backwards and forwards between each of you triggering each other into higher things and escalating. We go up and up and up.
It just goes up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So one of the tools that we teach in Revival Retreat is around what's the story I'm telling myself. And it's just such a really powerful tool and a powerful practice, and just to be able to ask yourself that, and to just be noticing your thoughts, that of itself creates it's a space creator, I think. And you might not be able to do it in that moment. You might do it later after you've done all of the but it's a really helpful thing to do, and then to have some other ways that we share and support and coach around what you do with that. So that's only one step, but once you've got that, it's really helpful. So what's some of the other things? So neurodiversity, obviously, I think is one of the areas where there's that does create misunderstandings, and so I think in that situation, although I thought maybe it hadn't featured, I actually talked to my brother yesterday to talk to him about heading off Fish Pie Gate, and he happened to talk about just intonation and how he handles some of these things, or just noticing how he does some of that stuff, and recognizing that one of the things he does is that he would he intentionally puts in intonation, or he has to do that intentionally. That it wouldn't be his natural thing necessarily, but he would be doing that to make sure that the next person, or the person receiving it, would have more chance of getting the meaning. And so maybe you'd go, have you made the fish pie yet? So give you some sense that they're in a good state or something. And it did cross my mind that I am just very used to now that Pete isn't somebody with a lot of inflection and intonation in what he's saying. So I guess in the past I was always trying to work that out, because I haven't necessarily got all of the typical cues or clues to some of that. But also I also think we're all doing that a lot of the time, bringing in all these different things. And are we saying what we mean? So I think one of the things we always say is say what you mean and believe what people say, rather than adding a load of stuff around it, and
actually, there's part of that makes me a little bit sad that perhaps your brother feels that, like, after a long day at work, but you come in, you're communicating a completely innocent thing with no bad intent whatsoever, but you've got to go through all these steps in your head first of how am I going to make this land properly, or
land a certain way.
And it would just be so much easier if people, generally everybody, did enough work to not be reactive and gave each other the time and the space in order to, and also we're assuming the best, because part of the problem there is like that we go into prediction mood, and our prediction mode is often a negative one, isn't it? Why do we go around thinking that people are going to be like doing the worst? I mean,
that's because that's what we're doing in us, isn't it?
Yeah,
it is a lot of what we're doing in us.
It's judging ourselves and judging other people and judging our situations. It's all of that swimming around in it. And, you know, I just think the world would be a much better place if we managed to do this kind of like assumption that everyone was coming into it with a really good intention. But we've collected bits of evidence, and of course we collect evidence in a very biased way, isn't it? Because of course once we've created a story, we're then looking for evidence to back up our story. So if we're having difficulties in our relationship for a really long period of time, we're obviously going to jump to these conclusions quite quickly, because we've already been, remember the time when, and remember that time, we go back in history. And that's of course,
I had a file about this big, Heather, for mine.
And the thing is, in communication that's so important is that we don't do that time traveling, that we don't bring that massive file from the past into our present communication, because otherwise, you know, we are going to start, you know, that's what our nervous systems do though, isn't it? You know, that's what we do. We go and rack our memories and our, you know, we kind of try and we're matching, aren't we? We're trying to find something that was a similar, and what did I do last time? And what did it mean last time? But, you know, all the time, we're not necessarily making the right assumptions. And I mean, we could sit here, couldn't we? We reckoned like we could just come up with so many similar examples. You know, I've got stories around what it meant that my husband you know, he put chili sauce on food. That in my head, I made that story about he doesn't like my cooking, he doesn't value the time and effort that I put into my cook. I had so many stories around that. He just wanted some blooming chili sauce on his food, you know. It's just like, that's all it was. It was just a bit of information that he likes the food spicier than everybody else. Which is completely fine, isn't it? But I made it not fine. In my head, I made it not fine. I made it into some kind of insult. Because
our insecurities are joining in. That's the other thing. That's like, it's helpful to just think what's joining in every interaction. And past is joining in, the culture is joining in, my own vulnerabilities and fears are joining in, my own expectations and judgments of myself were joining in, the bias that we're not really all doing the best we can is joining in. And I think all of those things are present. They're like all lined up.
And our nervous system's joined in for a bit of fun as well, join the party. And you know, all of those things are. So our meaning making is really, really fast. And then our bodies, you know, our autonomic nervous systems, they react really fast. So catching these things and learning to intercept it and creating that space, you know, that's a work in progress, isn't it? We have to do some practicing around that. And we have the tools and the support for that in Revival Retreat, don't we? We've got many small steps. That's what we have in Revival to Retreat. And we try and make each of them a little bit of fun as well, don't we?
I think the other thing that's showing up, and I don't know that we've talked about it specifically on a podcast before, is double empathy problem, and just the truth that rather than thinking that we're all having a similar experience most, if not all of the time, that we would actually have a different story or assumption or belief that actually we're generally not having the exact same having the same experience most of the time. And that's, again, not a neurodiversity thing. I think it's more that the seesaw of difference is perhaps more inside of that, but that's the truth for everyone, is that actually, and it was so helpful for me to learn that and have that perspective around everything. I had another example of that at the gym the other week, which had nothing to do with neurodiversity, but it was definitely me experiencing the fact that I was having a very different experience in terms of my nervous system in a gym environment than other people that are generally more comfortable there, and just knowing that we're not having the same experience, but we have to pull from other places to do that. But I just think that's turning up as well a lot of the time in our relationships and family situations, where we will very quickly invalidate another person or judge something or decide that what they're saying isn't true, or all those things, when it's because we're calling on all those other meaning making things of our own to determine that, rather than actually in the present hear what their experiences, believe their meaning with some other tools ourselves in order to handle that. Because even if I knew that truth, if I didn't have better trust, boundaries, other things, which are all other things we need, that having different experiences and different truths can be quite challenging until you've got some steadiness in some other areas.
But even that concept that there's more than one truth, or more than one perspective, more than one way of experiencing the exact same situation was certainly new to me. I didn't kind of have that understanding earlier on in my relationship, and it would have been, certainly, if I could have a chance to rewrite the curriculum, I'd probably bring most of the materials from a revival retreat into school. Wouldn't it be useful if we learnt this stuff before we got into a relationship?
Yeah, and I think the other thing with that for me is realizing that, because some people it's a real struggle to go that they're completely different experiences when that is the truth of it. But that often feels, I think a lot of people find that, I don't know, difficult, because we want to be having the same experience. I think there's something about shared experience. And so misunderstanding or thinking that we're not having the same experience, I think usually, again, bias would be that takes something from it. And I found it helpful to just think, okay, well, that means there's a bigger experience going on. There's more, it's more expansive, and there's more to this that needs including, rather than you're over there having that one, I'm over here having this one, so we're not really together. This isn't really joined up.
Yeah, because
it was helpful to go, oh, interesting. Well, I wonder what that's about then. I could own my experience and feel very okay with that, whatever, even on the fish pie. What's the experience I'm having? And you've just come back from work, and what's the experience you're having? And that makes the whole experience, rather than I'm having this one over here and you're having this one over here.
What are we having then? What is the together experience? And I think that comes from something came into my head and then certainly went out again. It'll come to me in a minute. But there was something about yes, that connected experience. So yes, you can be having very different experiences, but there's also there's an energy around the we of that as well, isn't it? And
and is it going to be a we that's
there's you, me, and we, isn't there? That's something around that, isn't it?
Is it going to be one that goes up and escalates and is all about all of there only being one truth or one answer?
Yeah, or is it really about curiosity? And some of that is just being interested, isn't it? It's like, it's almost like, oh wow, you're having what's going on for you, tell me more. But you wanted to know, but sometimes we're so desperate we're more keen on getting someone to share our experience than we are to understand and get curious about their experience. Whereas actually you can have a very connected we experience by being interested and curious and talking about these differences, and actually you can connect around difference, and that's what's really powerful, I think, and really useful.
I think that does invite having a steadiness in yourself in those situations, which I think is I definitely didn't have that for quite some time. There were other things that I needed to learn and practice first to have that steadiness in myself, to then to even want to have the curiosity and the interest in somebody else's experience.
Well, it just didn't have
not really wanted to do that to start with, to be quite honest.
But we didn't have
capacity. Much more interested in your experiences and what you were doing than I was in what he was doing. But
we were exhausted and fairly our capacity was teeny weeny for these kinds of things. There is a certain amount of recovery work, and we're really careful, aren't we, with the resources and the journey that you take through the retreat. It's that we start with the foundations, and we're building capacity, we're building, we're plugging up some of those holes in our bucket. We're talking about filling up our we do it in a very what's the word?
Gentle.
I've been struggling with my words. Deliberate and intentional order, isn't there? Yes. Around the landmarks, we call them, are the different resources at different stages. And sometimes we have members getting in and say, I need to know how to work on this one here. And we're like going, just hang on, because that's just coming, isn't it? Because you're trying to do the we, and we need to do the me first. So we've got a very deliberate route, haven't we, through the resources, and that's so that when you do come to these little incidents, you have got enough of that emotional steadiness, and we've got enough understanding of the meanings and our foundations in ourselves, aren't we? And we also have enough understanding about our defensive states and our defense modes, that we're not getting overreactive in the situation. We are able to slow things down. That's a really important one, isn't it?
Slow it down. And I think that's absolutely key. You know, one of the analogies I was just reminded of just now was that I remember was really helpful at the beginning. It's still helpful in some respects, but it's kind of wandered back in my experience these days, but is that we are in a sort of multicultural relationship, as it were, and that this is sort of, it's like having, like, you're from different cultures, and because you're seeing and experiencing life differently. And I think that is just being able to have that analogy or metaphor of it was really helpful to begin with. I feel like we're on more of the same page now, or maybe we're just more comfortable in those differences, because that's what we're talking about really, is if you're in a multicultural relationship where your background is different, and it's the same, you're navigating difference, you're navigating different conditioning, different cultural stories, different experiences of all kinds of things. And it's how you start to put those together. And I think a lot of multicultural relationships have some of the similar issues that we have, and we could talk about things then that are lost in translation. Again, talking to my brother yesterday, he was asking me whether loving difference as a community struggles or experiences challenges with the fact that we're a global community. We have people in all different places, and even with the English between, say, here in the UK and America, are there struggles with the using different words and things? And I kind of said, oh no, I don't really think so. And then actually I came up with a couple of examples, and he was like, well, I don't think they'd know what that was. And even with that, so we are holding difference and living with difference inside of loving difference, even both neurotypes, different neurotypes, different genders, men and women, different cultures from different parts of the world. And we're using all of the tools in that community that we're using in our relationships to hold that space and to spend time together and live together in quite a harmonious way with those tools. So we're sort of practicing in there, but it was interesting just to hear from one of the funny ones that I talked to him about. Well, the ping pong came up, that's why, because he was saying, well, they understand the ping pong.
Oh yeah, that's why that was in my head, isn't it?
Yeah. And then and I said, oh well, I've also created a resource that talks about had the term hide and seek in it, which I'm feeling like I do need to explain now, as a game in the UK that children generally play, and maybe some adults who are pretending they're children still, and having a good time. And my brother said, oh I don't know that's not called the same thing in America, because he's lived there for quite a long time now. And I was like, oh, I just assume it's the same experience, the same name and everything, and apparently not. So over there it's called search and find. And so if I describe something as hide and seek here, then the meaning potentially is lost. And so we are in the same territory really of, well, what does this mean? It doesn't make sense now. And do we make it wrong? Do we, it's just interesting, isn't it, about this idea of what is lost in translation. But to me, it's the same, some of it's the same, and we can expand and just put an tiny word, but we can do quite a lot with an and yeah, that really helps, I think, just to know that, yeah, that's what we're navigating, and maybe we need some different ways for that. Yeah,
and maybe everybody needs some new ways for that.
Yeah, I do think that a lot of this is not isn't, as I always say often, this is not all about neurodiversity, and which I guess brings us full circle with the theme of this podcast. It's not all neurodiversity. That may be a nuance and an element of what's happening, but I think misunderstandings and lost in translation and judgments and escalations are a lot to do with relationship dynamics in every relationship and every family.
I mean, communication is just plain tricky, isn't it? I mean, I obviously I'm really passionate about teaching communication and to finding better ways of connecting through our communication. And it's just interesting. I mean, language is so tricky. I mean, I don't know, and probably others as well, but English has so many different meanings for the same words. And yeah, we rely on so many different clues and things that we have to pick up. And actually, this really is an awful lot easier if everyone just, like you say, says what they mean and we believe what people say, you know, that's kind of like our message, isn't it, really?
Yeah, that's all good.
What else do we need to mention?
I was just trying to think, is there any other ways or just any other key things that have helped us with? I definitely feel like we have far fewer misunderstandings these days, and I was just trying to think what else is going on that means that that's the case.
I had one this morning. I'll tell you this one. This was a funny one. So I came in from walking the dog. And I thought, oh, while I've still got my wellies on, I might as well take the bins out. So I just asked my daughter to pass me the bins. But she saw me with my muddy wellies and thought and made the assumption that I was looking for a bag for my wellies.
Oh.
So, you know, so I thought I'd translated or made a request that was quite straightforward. And it had her like running all over the place trying to find a bag for my wellies. And I was like, I don't know where you got that from, but she took the clues, visual clues, and made a guess about what I meant rather than really listening and processing what I'd actually said, because I had someone else in the room that had realized the meaning of what I was saying. But it was just, you know, and then of course you get frustrated because that's not what you said, and they get frustrated because that's not what they heard. And actually we could both go, it's just a miscommunication, isn't it? We just had a misunderstanding, it's fine. And we were able to, I think that's one of the keys, isn't it? It's not that these things never happen anymore. No. It's just that our ability to spot when it's happened and to shift from reactivity to naming it for what it is and making a repair or reconnect, and the recovery is therefore so much quicker, and the impact of it is so much less. That we are having these things all the time, but often they become sources of connection rather than disconnect, actually. And that's like quite incredible from where we were years ago when we were having these things all the time, and they meant something really awful, and we were sitting and swimming in a whole
and the next day you were in the day befores and day befores and the days befores, and now you're in today's ones as well, and there was never a route off like that hamster wheel of things. And I think it is you've just beautifully described, like, I guess that it is possible to do it differently, and it is as simple as that. But that takes practice, and there's a lot of tools and a lot of awareness and a lot of other things inside of that we've needed to learn. That's why sometimes our new automatic with those things sometimes can be harder to decode, because we've now integrated some different ways of doing it that are now as automatic as the old automatics that were unhealthy. So through Revival Retreat, we teach tools that can then move from having unhealthy integrated automatic patterns, and then by learning new ones, we practice and then ultimately integrate new ones such that the unhealthy ones might show up if we're really stressed, or show up if something's really awful. So they can show up, but we can shift out of them easier. But what we've done in that, I don't know what's going on with the light here. I feel like I'm getting darker and darker.
Yeah, is it because the sun keeps popping in and out?
It's because I've got a dark top on and the light's really bad. There we go. But over the retreat journey, we're teaching and practicing and supporting you to integrate new patterns that then ultimately you do go and you're in a misunderstanding and you go, oh, this is going okay, because it's a healthy pattern that's now integrated and automatic. And I think that's the difference, is that it's a shift. That's the shift, is then being, it's not that all the situations around you suddenly different. It's that these situations happen because we're human beings, and these kinds of situations do happen when we're different people communicating and connecting with one another. Like every interaction, I thought the other day, every single interaction, I think, is an opportunity for healing or for hurting. And either you or another person. And I believe there's a choice there. Like, is this a part of the healing, or is it a part of the ongoing hurting? And that we're in choice and empowered to choose those things. So it is that the situations do keep happening. It's not that all the situations just stop happening, but our reactions and our way of showing up and being in them is so different that we're doing it from a very healthy place, and from a resourced place. And then beyond that, the situations themselves do change. So it is that I think is the hope in all of it, is to learn these things, practice them, have the support you need to do that, and then you will have sustainable change that is permanent, because it's integrated in you. It's not just, oh, I've got to remember to do this process to do this communicating, you know, so we need to get this process out, we need to do the thing in the book or whatever. It's, oh no, I understand, and it's an integrated thing. It's inside you. And just speak to that briefly around the nervous system, Heather, because that then is also really the nervous system stuff, isn't it? Related.
Yeah, it takes really, it does take some work, and I think it's really tempted when we get into this and we realize that there's neurodiversity, we go and read all those books and we go and watch all the things, and we go and seek out knowledge, don't we? But knowledge is only a small part of our journey, isn't it? And that's what we've really continued to support our members with, because like you say, we have old unhealthy patterns and they're very automatic, and because they're just patterned into our nervous systems, we are so used to going there that they've become like super highways. They're really myelinated, they've got this sheath on them, the messages go up and down those, you know, really quickly.
Nanosecond, like the nanosecond.
Absolutely. So we have to learn to interrupt those highways, and then we have to do something different for often enough, so that we are then creating some new superhighways, so that we've got ability to recognize the moment where we could go our own way or our new way, and only once that new way becomes as strong, if not stronger than our old way, so we've done it kind of some more times, and that's why it does. Then we're automatic into the new pattern, then, aren't we? But up to that point, it is requiring a little bit of pausing, slowing down, making a choice. But at least we're giving ourselves the chance to make the choice. But we does take some time, and that's the kind of practice that is really, it's difficult to do on your own. And the point of being in revival retreat is you've got other people who are doing this stuff with you. So when you're feeling a bit frustrated, or when you feel like it's like, you cross because you went down the old highway again and it didn't go well, you know, you've got that support, you've got other people, and it's like, yes, I was like that, but you know, I'm a few months ahead now, and it's really noticed the difference. I mean, you get that kind of messages of hope all the time, don't you? That really helps.
Yeah. So when I was stood by the fish pie last week, basically I was choosing between one or other superhighway, and I can see that now. Like, I literally, it's like standing at the point where they're both there, and you've clocked these thinking would take me down this one, and actually there's something else that can interrupt it and go, both doing the best we can. I'm doing the best. I have done the best I can with the fish pie. I don't need to do that whole judging thing. It's just 5 words. No, it's not done. Let's take the other highway.
Yay.
And there is that thing though, that sounds like that's a simple thing, but it's not. That, you know, that it is once you've practiced, you know, that's the thing. It's simpler. It's a simpler thing.
Changing our defensive patterns. We've got to remember that we've been developing those and making those super highways. They've been under construction since birth, you know, or maybe before some of the research says now, doesn't it? Sure. So we've really been practicing them an awful lot. So we can't just read something and create that change. We need to do something different, and we need to do something different.
There's been a lot more fish pie days. There's been a lot more other days where I was thinking and then heading down the old one and thinking, oh, blow it, I can't be asked with the new one. And just all of that. I can remember, like, I don't want to do the new one. You remember that? You remember the phase where you're like,
that's resistance,
it's too hard, I don't want to do the new highway.
There is that, and there's but I think that's why you just got to be in a community when you're doing it, isn't it? Because otherwise I don't think I'd have got to this point if we hadn't been kind of doing this work together. I know we've come at it from different sort of, you know, points of the journey, but you know, the fact is we were working on this stuff together, and we could then exchange some stories about it, and it just really helped us along. And that's, you know, we're bringing in now, you know, we're both accredited coaches, you know, and you do a lot of the story stuff, don't you? And I've gone down the somatics route, and I do a lot of the the nervous system retraining, but all of that, you know, we do together, and our community gets the benefit of that kind of professional support and the everyone's in this together. We're all still doing it. It's still, we always talk about it, that it's still our journey too, isn't it? You know, we've been doing it.
Well, I think that's why last week was a good lesson, because it was that it isn't, we always say there's not that things are not going to happen, it's this you're different in them, and there's other ways to handle them, and so you have a different experience straight away, as soon as you've got that practice to even try, and you're just at the beginning, and the new highway is still very much under construction and still basically has a, you know, something else on it, and you haven't dug anything up yet. And it needs building, and that's fine, and then you'll get to a place where you even choose what car you're in to drive down it, and you know, it's great. Good, but let's leave it there today.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Hey, part 2, because we've had an afterthought, haven't we?
Yeah, love an afterthought on a podcast.
Yeah, it's always
right that we don't prepare ourselves adequately.
And also when we just have a real good sort of remembering into what it was like when we first discovered everything, because I think we both had this kind of, oh, okay, now we know why we're having all these misunderstandings. It's because neurodiversity. So
actually, I've been all this difficulty for years and years, and I've been trying to find out the reason why this all feels so confusing and so difficult and so challenging. And hurrah! I have an answer.
Yay, we've got an answer. And then my next step was, well, okay, so I know this is all the answer. So therefore there must be strategies, communication techniques, something I can learn to fix it all.
And we did.
Make it all perfect.
We did. What things did you try?
Well, I think what I did start with is signed up for things, because I thought someone else out there would have the way of telling me how to do that. So then I was really looking for things outside of myself and assuming that there was like some kind of definite tool or way of navigating this. I remember definitely doing that or thinking that. But I was kind of, it was almost like going to be like a different language course or something where you going to have to go and learn something. Very different to where we've ended up.
Well, that whole thing about, like we're saying, different culture, learn a different language. It was, I can remember, you know, in some spheres of neurodiversity, they talk about sort of Asperger's speak and all that kind of thing, and I don't know, autism language. And so I was like, okay, I need to learn the language of, or like I need to learn Pete's language. He can't learn mine, so I will have to stop doing my thing and learn his thing, and do that always, forever. And I tried that, and okay, it's coming back a bit now. What I did try,
it's a long time ago, isn't it?
It is, and I think I did try. So one of the things that was a big strategy at the time around then was that I apparently talk with a lot of emotion, or you know, a lot more emotionally. So best thing to take all that out.
Don't bother with emotional
directly
stuff.
Don't include anything emotional, don't be emotional. So talk like that. So I tried that. I didn't really change anything. I just felt worse for that. And the other thing I can remember was there was I remember reading in one book, which was maybe a communication type book, talks about, it even gave me some way to phrase something, or probably about being more direct in my communication, which has been helpful. But at the time, I tested something else. I think I can remember using it one evening and saying, he asked me if I wanted a cup of tea. I mean, this is like down to these like little funny situations.
Mundane things.
How much meaning is in something. So he said, do you want a cup of tea? And I answered with something more methodical from this book. And he said, why did you just say it like that? And I said, well, I've been reading something and it says that this is a good way to talk to you. And he said, don't change how you normally answer me. I would have no idea what you mean. Oh, okay, yes, yes, please then.
What was wrong with yes, please, anyway?
So I lost him completely by trying to use the strategy in the book.
That's interesting. I think the problem is the strategies are very surface level, and actually, I mean, we talk a lot about communication, don't we? But actually, we don't put communication in revival retreat until like step 3, do we? And that's very purposeful and very intentional, because actually we know that it doesn't matter exactly how you say something or what communication strategy you use if you're coming at it from an energy where you're resentful, exhausted, frustrated, you know, or feeling
already
unheard,
decided what you want the outcome to be.
or you've already, you're using it to get someone else to do something. You know, if you haven't done all the steps beforehand, there isn't a magic communication tool. The communication comes from doing all of the work in all of the steps up until that point, doesn't it?
Yeah. And I think my communication and misunderstandings actually started reducing when I got more clear about myself, recovered myself, had energy, was revived myself really, and then got much clearer about what I was communicating, that I was saying what I was meaning, rather than skirting around things or hinting at things, or not really wanting to say what I needed, or not really knowing what I needed.
No, I was going to say, we got a lot more clear about that, didn't we? We got so much more clarity around what we needed and what was important to us and what mattered to us. And then because we were able to kind of embody that and change the way we showed up in that, that automatically got conveyed better than the way when we were communicating from fear, predicting outcomes, predicting someone else's response. You know, all of those things meant that it didn't really work anyway, did it?
Yeah.
Are we going on a tangent now with communication? We could talk that for ages, couldn't we?
No, but the key thing was that in the beginning, because the reason we just come around to this, we were just trying to work out the title of this podcast, which was can I blame all the misunderstandings in my relationship on neurodiversity? And we realized that is what we did in the beginning. Absolutely. We're like, brilliant. Now I have something that I can pin all of this on.
All this mess is down to that
one thing. And realizing that didn't help us to do that, actually. That it gave us some information, but actually there's 101 other things showing up as well. So I think it was important to just say that suddenly we had like, the penny goes ding 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 ding. Yes, I remember when we used to blame all the misunderstandings on neurodiversity, and then realizing that we were playing a bit of a role in some of that ourselves.
Oh, totally.
Good. All right. Join us for the next episode soon.
Take care. If this episode has resonated with you, subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening or watching to get notifications of future episodes. To dive deeper into all of this with professional coaching, resources, and all the support you need, join us in Loving Difference via www.lovingdifference.net. And we'll be back here soon.